Hello, my name's Adam Novak, and now finally for something fun. Let's create our first model. So this is the 3D viewport. We're going to start simply by pushing one on the numpad. That will get us to front view. So now we're at front view, we know the Z axis is upwards and the X axis is sideways as we model. This is a nice standard, and it's good to use a standard so you always know where you are in the 3D environment. So for a starter, all we're going to do is make sure that this panel is open by pushing N in the 3D viewport, and we are going to add a background image. Select the tick box and select add image. Then we can open an image. The image we're going to use today, or that I'm going to use, is one I created myself. It's quite easy to use because it's proportions, but you can use any pawn piece you want. Just please honor licensing agreements. After downloading this, opening its location folder, I want to add the pawn chess piece to a background image. Now it's located just off center on the Z axis. So as we see here, we can transform it horizontally, put it back to its location, or transform it vertically, and we want to just put 4 into its vertical transformation, so it's now in its very center location. Now all we're going to do is trace the outline. So we're going to add our first object. So push Shift A and add a mesh, and that's going to be a plane. What I like to do when I'm modeling, and it's up to you, I like to push Control up in the 3D viewport. It expands the 3D viewport, and it's a lot nicer and easy to navigate. So I'll push Tab now to get into edit mode. I'll push W to open the extra options, and I'm going to merge at center. Because this object was at the very center location here, it is this vertice, which I've merged at, is now its very center point. If yours is not, you can push Shift C, which will put the cursor back to its center point. Then push Shift S and go selection to cursor. That I'll show you. Shift S, selection to cursor. The polygon, if I right click and cancel the transformation after grabbing it, is, as you can see, is right at this cursor location. So now all we need to do to create this outline, there's 2 ways to do it. We can extrude. What I like to do when I extrude, I like to hold Control whenever possible, so it moves in increments. That way if I make a mistake, I can always move it back to its position or make changes quite easily, and that happens a lot. You always make mistakes. The other way to do this is simply hold Control and left click, and they'll automatically extrude the vertice for you. As you can see here, it's not working because I've got it on top of these axes transformation. I think it's a gimbal, I'm not sure what it's called. You can turn it off down here. This button down here, if you want. So as you can see here, I went from Control left clicking to simply grabbing and moving it, because this is a right angled point, so it needed the firm transformations. Since I'm using a curve or organic modeling at this point here, to an extent, I'm going to use the Control left click again. This last point here has to be along this Z axis exactly. Now we push Shift C, we know this cursor is on the Z axis, so it's at X equals 0, being this side minus this side plus. So if I want this point to now get right to X equals 0, or where the Z axis line is, if I transform this polygon to this cursor, pushing full stop, to now use cursor manipulation, I can scale it along the X axis to 0. So it's 0 distance away from the cursor along the X axis. So if I went scale X, it's simply scaling along the X axis away or closer to the cursor. I'm now transforming in a negative transformation. If I click 0, it's now directly above that point. So now we're simply going to use a neat trick in Blender, pushing Control up in the 3D viewport to shrink the screen again. We can add a modifier in the properties panel. It looks like a spanner, then go to add modifier. We're going to add a screw modifier, which screws it on the Z axis. If yours looks really dark like mine does now, we need to flip the vertices, and now we have a chess piece. If you'd like to increase the geometry, we can increase the geometry by increasing the amount of steps. See, 3 steps, 4, just like 5, 6, 7, and 30. Let's go to 12 because we're also going to add a subdivision modifier, which is quite often done when rendering the piece. We're going to apply this screw modifier while we're not in edit mode. As you can see, when we're editing this, we're still only editing the outline. This is because we have not applied our screw modifier. So we'll apply it now. And now when we edit it, we're editing the object after it's been screwed around its location. And the location it screws is the object center point, which we had automatically set. That's the standard. If yours did this, you're probably not along the axes directly, and it might just be easier to restart the tutorial if you can't correct it, but my best and easiest option for correcting it is pressing Shift C, getting the cursor back to its origin, find where it's out of transformation, and scale it along the axes to the cursor. So it's now back in close to its original position. As you can see, it's out by these two. I know it's not exactly right, but at least we can fill in those holes. So I've kind of fixed it. So now we apply the screw modifier, making sure we haven't got no doubles by pushing W and removing doubles. So we removed 22 vertices. That's because we've screwed the object, and these points at the top and bottom would have extra objects on top of itself. So if you're going to do something like export it, 3D print it, it might be ugly. If you want to 3D print it, I'd suggest pull this ring loop down by alt-right clicking the ring loop. You can grab it and move it down. And since we have added this subsurface modifier, it's moved everything off. We're probably going to have to sharpen some of these edges. So we select by alt-right clicking this bottom ring loop, we can push Shift E, then 1. So it's creased the edge all the way to its maximum. So it's now at 90 degrees again. The other way to do this, when rendering is more appropriate, is by adding another ring loop by pushing Ctrl R, then left clicking to confirm, and then we can transform it closer to the edge, and we are sharpening these edges. If you do want to 3D print this object, try not to put them directly on top of each other. This could cause ugliness when exporting the STL file. Just bring it close. You cannot add ring segments to the bottom since we have already removed doubles. If we want to add rings, we can delete this vertice, push comma so we're no longer using cursor manipulation. So now when we extrude, pushing E, this bottom ring segment, right click to cancel so we're not transforming it, but scale it down now. And extrude and scale it again. Push F to make a solid face. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for regular updates, or support us on Patreon for some cool rewards.